Okay, hello everybody. This is Ken Aaron with Going Viral, and today we're going to talk about the hydrogen cycle and a little bit more from before the hydrogen cycle till after the hydrogen cycle and the benefits and the risks. And our guest today is David Vasquez. He's got a long resume, but let's say he's knowledgeable in this field, knows its ins and outs, and has been there. He'll explain his background briefly as soon as we bring him on. So, good morning, Dave. There we go. Could you tell us a little bit about you?
Okay. I took the scenic route through college. I couldn't decide what I wanted to do, so I started out in photography and filmmaking and had a great time at that, but realized I was an environmentalist and I wanted to do something that makes a difference in the world. So I didn't really know what to make movies about. So I became an urban planning major and got a BA in urban planning. And then I decided I didn't want to be a bureaucrat, which is what most urban planners do, and learned about sustainability and solar energy. And then I went and got a master's degree in education because I was just thinking education, you can influence a lot of things that way. And I continued with that and got a doctorate in computer-based education and learned computer graphics. And so now what I'm trying to do is put it all together and use media to educate about sustainability and the big environmental problems we have right now. And then I for a while I was working as a consultant for urban planning agencies to show, what projects would look like when they're finished. So you use computer graphics and show, okay, here's what it looks like now. Here's what it could look like after we do this big number on it. I worked for a while for California High Speed Rail. I made an animation about what that would look like. And then I decided to get into just looking at future visionary thinkers. And I've come across two so far. The first one was a guy in Northern California who had this idea for a new kind of train system that would completely change the whole situation in California for getting around. You'd basically be able to go anywhere on a train, and it's a solar hydrogen train, and it's designed in a way that it would actually make money. I wrote 2 books about it. Here's one of them called Mr. Swan's Big Idea.
Could you hold that a little bit closer and don't move it around? Mr. Swan's Big Idea.
Yeah.
By you. Okay.
Yeah, by me. And that's that picture on the front is a photo simulation, which is what I'm used to doing, to show what the Golden Gate Bridge would look like with this futuristic train going underneath on the second deck. I did another one on the same topic. This one has a lot more pictures in it, but it's basically a solar powered train. And if we had this, because it would make money, it would spread pretty quickly, and people in California wouldn't have to have a car anymore. You'd basically be able to go everywhere you want to go on a nice train. If you want to go somewhere in your car, fine, you can still do that, but the roads would be a lot less congested. So anyway, after that, I decided, you know what I want? I like this idea. I like looking for visionary thinkers who are doing big plans, and big ideas that could solve big problems. So I found another guy. His name is Roy McAllister. He's an inventor down in Arizona, and he's been working for 50 years on hydrogen technology. He started the American Hydrogen Association. He has over 300 patents in renewable energy technology, and he had something that I just as soon as I saw it, I go, wait a minute, can this be real? It's a new. The first thing was a new fuel called Metrol. It's a zero emission fuel. It's a liquid fuel. It's just as convenient to use as gasoline. You could use existing infrastructure to use it. We don't have to switch to battery electric cars. I think battery electric cars are great, but the sad fact is there's not enough time. If we want to solve climate change, we can't build enough of those things fast enough to solve the problem. It's just too little too late. We have to do something that uses existing infrastructure and could use existing cars. And that's what Metrol is. It's a way to package hydrogen into a way that is easy to use and convenient. And we could use existing gas stations and gas tanks and tanker trucks. And I just thought, what's the catch here? I mean, this just sounds too good to be true. I've been looking for a catch. I can't find one. It seems. Furthermore, you make it out of hydrogen. You make the hydrogen out of garbage and sewage and biomass waste. In which he's got another invention called. It's an industrial device called a hydrocarbon splitter, and you can feed into it. You feed into it methane, but methane's made from things like farm waste and food waste and sewage and municipal solid waste that lets off methane. You could also do things like grow energy crops like hemp or algae. And the bottom line is because it uses biomass for its fuel, biomass is made from plants. Plants are made from photosynthesis. Photosynthesis sucks down carbon from the atmosphere, which is down a lot of carbon dioxide from the atmosphere, more than any other method that's come out so far, by using this device, the hydrocarbon splitter. And like I said, it makes hydrogen, and it makes hydrogen without the existing way to make hydrogen puts out a lot of carbon dioxide emissions. So it's not exactly clean. It's clean in your car, but to make it is not clean. So we got to come up with new ways to make hydrogen, and this is one of them. The other thing it does is it puts a byproduct is it takes all the carbon that was in the plants and it makes it into solid carbon. Roy is a material scientist, and he came up with a very, very low cost way to make carbon fiber out of this plant waste, carbon fiber and graphene. And I don't know if you know what graphene is, but two guys got the Nobel Prize for inventing graphene in 2012. Actually, Roy McAllister had it 6 years before that. He just didn't make a big deal about it. Graphene and carbon fiber, they're miracle materials. They're stronger than steel, lighter than aluminum. They don't rust. And up until now, they've been just far too expensive to use on a lot of things. But with this new industrial device, the hydrocarbon splitter, you'd be able to have carbon fiber and graphene for a much, much lower price, which would mean it would revolutionize manufacturing. And the other thing is a lot of profit. You'd make a lot of profit off this. So that's a motivation to get going on this stuff.
Okay, great. You've got a universe of new things, and in your history too of phenomena. So there was one thing I just wanted to inject for conversational purposes.
Yeah.
The vacuum tube trains that now I just saw a little video about Elon Musk, who I personally have a lot of respect for. I'm sure I'm waiting for somebody to try to knock him down, but he's got a long way to go to get knocked down because he's got so many checks on the right side.
Yeah, he's obviously a genius,
Yeah. Well, then a motivation. It's not just the thought or the idea, it's the implementation. He's got the courage and the risk and the leadership to make it happen. And the ruthlessness. The ruthlessness is also required. But so he started this thing with a hydro tube. It's something which we used to watch in the Flash Gordon movies, if you're old enough to remember that. You get in a tube to go and get sucked up like a pneumatic tube that they had in the 30s and 40s. Yeah. But what he did was he started a competition with, I think, a half-mile tube to have people compete to design the module that would travel through it. And all kinds of designs came up, and he's doing it again. There's another competition coming up with, I think I heard a 6-mile long tube, and let's run this competition again to get people to invest time and money. And as a consequence of this, various companies and countries have been starting to dedicate a certain amount of financing to figure this out, to see how it would work, and solve the problems of, which way does the capsule go? How do you, if it's a vacuum tube, how do you switch rails? How do you go this way and that? How do you go left, right? And, okay, I want to go to Detroit. I don't want to go to San Francisco. How do you switch?
Yeah.
So those problems are getting solved or addressed. So
Yeah.
my question is, this actually can fit in with all of the work that this, what's the, I didn't get his name.
His name is Roy McAllister.
Roy McAllister's
Yeah.
plans about, trains and integrating trains into urban environments and so forth. They could be maglev trains outside. They could be maglev trains in a vacuum. They could be whatever.
Right.
But it could integrate with his work, couldn't it?
Yeah. One thing that I went through, I did a lot of research on trains, especially high-speed rail trains, because I did a movie about it. And one of the things I came to the conclusion is they seem to be stressing speed over everything else. How can we get people from, LA to San Francisco in 2 hours without an airplane? And I eventually came to the realization that, you know what, is speed really the most important thing?
Let me interrupt a second. Is that your phone in the background?
Yeah, it is. It's gonna stop in a second.
Okay, great. Good enough.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's continue. You're right.
So
that speed is being the obsession. It's sort of like, and that's just sort of like looking at a woman and saying, let me measure the size of this and that, and not looking at other features like, can she cook and where does she want to set the thermostat? So go ahead. Speed in rail has
what I
taken
noticed
our
about
attention off all the other benefits.
Yeah, I mean, what I noticed about trains is in Europe and here, like not that long ago, I took the train from LA up to the Bay Area. And you know what? I have a great time on trains. I really enjoy the experience of being on a train. What is the rush? I can work. I always end up meeting people and talking to people. And so after a while, I thought, speed's great. I mean, I understand people have to get places, but the Elon Musk thing, one thing about it is there's no windows on this thing. You're inside this room. It's almost like, I'm thinking like, how'd you like to be in an elevator for, 10 minutes, It's like, I don't know. I give Elon Musk a lot of credit for just being outside the box, but I'm not sure speed's the most important thing anymore. It seems this Sun Train idea that Chris Swan came up with, he calls it instead of high speed rail, he calls it full service rail, which means you just have a really good time on this train, and I remember, I used to hear about elevated trains back east. And one time I went to Chicago and I went on the elevated trains that go above Chicago. And I'd always heard that they're criticized. They're noisy and all this stuff. I thought they were great. You get to look at the town and you're talking to people, just looking down on the city. So I don't know. I love trains in general. So if there's, I'm sure there's some places where the hyper, I think he calls it the Hyperloop, Elon Musk system. There's probably some places where we could do it, but I'd just like to see trains going everywhere. I think it's a great way to.
Yeah. If you go to Europe, you get a Euro pass.
Yeah.
And you just travel wherever. And
most of the time, I live in San Francisco right now. I don't have a car. I don't need a car right now. I use Uber. I could rent a car if I really need a car, but most of the time I'm just on public transportation and my bicycle, and it works great.
Well, one of the things that's unusual about San Francisco was, I'm only saying San Francisco because I know sometimes it's an insult to say San Fran or Frisco. So
whatever. I don't care.
But I thought when I was up there were like 6 different methods of transport in what we would normally call buses. There were buses, there were trains, there were bus trains. Buses that like went on a track and into tunnels. Yeah. And there's the trolley, and maybe there's a tram somewhere, or just multiple and
there's cable buses, cars if you really want to.
Cable cars, right? So
it's really slow.
I know, but there's various, like 6 different integrated systems of transportation.
Yeah, and then we could just leave cars for going on a nice road trip. I like going on car road trips, but. We could get most of the cars off the highways if we just really went back big into trains, and it's a lot more.
Yeah, but I think we're this was an idea I thought of but didn't push. Is if I'm working in the valley and I live in let's say in Los Angeles, it takes sometimes an hour and a half to get from one place to the other. But the work I'm doing in the valley, some guy's doing right where I live in my neighborhood.
Yeah. That's
and he
right.
lived where he lives. Oh, where I live. He lives in the valley, and he comes here, and I live here, and I go there.
Yeah.
So
Well, why don't
if
you
you
guys switch
just
houses?
just tune up, no, switch jobs,
Yeah.
tune up the because I was saying switch job, just put a little more AI and intelligence into job
That's
opportunities,
right.
and then
That's right.
cuts down. And now this was enforced with this the lockdown because of the pandemic.
Yeah.
That people, there must have increased. Must have been 20 to 30% of the white collar workers, or 50% of the white collar workers started working from home.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
and everybody had to comply because it was a mandate. And they started to discover the benefits, or there were some problems with working at home too. You tend to work too much, or you don't get a
Yeah.
chance. It's very hard to do practical jokes because you're not in the office.
Yeah.
You can't put any whoopee cushions down. So it's that it is a diminution of social contact. It's just
Yeah.
virtual, but it's tremendously beneficial to the environment and the society in certain ways. There's less pollution, there's
And
less traffic jams,
even
and so forth. So anyhow, that's great. That's very interesting stuff. So with the Metrol, right? What I'm going to do is play a clip on this
yes.
Metro thing, which is about 10 minutes. But I want to leave your mic on so you can make comments and say, well, pause here because I want to talk about it,
Okay.
that kind of a thing. So let me cue that up,
Okay.
and we'll play it as soon as I get down to where's my share button. Oh, there we go. Okay, here it comes. This is the Metrol movie. And before I even start it, um, let me say that it is a commercial video. In other words, it's advertising a certain business or solution in society that's a private enterprise.
Yes.
However, the information in there is very good, and it covers the general topic on environmental issues and how methane and hydrogen work into that. So here it comes. Ding. Now let's hope that's playing.
Yeah. I see the little circle thing going there.
There's
There it
something
is.
on the renewable energy front, something you probably haven't heard of, and something under the radar. Most importantly, it's something that could potentially solve huge problems, including what many now say is the biggest problem, global climate change. This new thing is called Metrol. It's a clean and green, affordable, and easy to obtain, easy to use liquid fuel that delivers hydrogen with the unmatched potential to quickly eliminate almost all forms of air, water, and land pollution, especially carbon emissions. To understand the full importance of Metrol requires that we face up to what it would take to actually solve the climate change crisis. It's basically two tasks. First, we need to stop emitting excess carbon gases into the atmosphere. Second, we need to remove already existing surplus carbon gases in significant amounts from the atmosphere. Amazingly, Metrol can do both. We also have to find a way to stop polluting our landscapes and oceans with our waste. Metrol can do this too. The full list of benefits for the Metrol technology system would seem to make it the proverbial no-brainer. The Metrol program was developed by an Arizona research group known as McAllister Technologies. The company's director, Roy McAllister, a professional engineer with over 250 patents in renewable energy, founded the American Hydrogen Association, wrote a book called The Solar Hydrogen Civilization, has taught in the engineering departments at University of Kansas and Arizona State University, and has received awards from prominent professional engineering societies for innovations in green energy.
We use a relatively small amount of electricity to ionize a portion of the population of injected fuel so that these ions carry on the ignition. these ions go where the fuel goes. And so in that sense, extremely efficient. And the way we present the fuel then is as a stratified charge. So we'll demonstrate.
Metrol is made from anything that rots or burns. This typically means biomass waste, such as sewage, garbage, farm waste, or forest waste. Metrol could also be made from fossil fuel. When made from biomass, an anaerobic digester is used to extract from it the methane gas. Then, and unlike other biofuels which typically just use the methane as a fuel, Metrol production takes it a step further by splitting the methane into its constituent parts, hydrogen and carbon. The solid carbon is collected and then sold to industry as a manufacturing resource. The hydrogen gas is collected and, by use of a patented process, combined with nitrogen and carbon dioxide drawn from the atmosphere to form a 3-element liquid fuel, Metrol. Because it's a liquid at room temperature and pressure, it's as easy to store and transport as gasoline, diesel, or jet fuel. This means we don't have to build massive new infrastructure to handle the hydrogen-based fuel.
Okay, I'm going to pause here, Dave, because I want to ask a question. I don't want, the majority of people who are ever going to see this video are, depends upon what their education is. It's a very good video for the general public. But when the carbon is taken out from the methane, you're splitting the carbon and the hydrogen. That, just to make it clear, that those products, they don't become fuel. That carbon isn't coal. It's just graphite.
No.
It's just, carbon is more than just coal. It's the element in almost everything that exists has carbon in it.
Yeah,
So,
carbon's a part of coal, but coal also has a bunch of other stuff in it.
right. So this is not making that carbon will not then fall into the climate change problem. It won't become a greenhouse gas.
No.
It's not a greenhouse gas. In fact, the graphene becomes a new miracle product that, as you said, is stronger than steel and lighter than aluminum.
And it doesn't rust.
And doesn't rust. It's almost like I got to call up a friend who writes songs and say, come on, let's get a song going on this. Stronger than steel and lighter than aluminum, or at least a superhero, a graphene hero. So I just wanted to get that clear. The extraction of the carbon doesn't now become a greenhouse gas.
That's exactly right.
In fact,
and a lot of times they've been talking about, sucking carbon out of the air with these big giant machines and then burying the carbon underground.
Right.
But that would cost money to bury it, and you're not getting the benefit of that carbon. You can make money off that carbon. Carbon's too. One of Roy's favorite sayings is carbon is too profitable to burn or to bury.
Okay. And there's another angle to it, which is, in fact, materials like graphene lead to lighter construction.
That's exactly right.
So you then have you have the body, the body of your vehicle is lighter, uses less energy to mobilize, and it's stronger, and it lasts longer. The only problem possibly with the graphene is it doesn't have automated obsolescence. Well, it lasts for 12 years, then it falls apart. You got to go buy a new one. It might be too good for some industries.
Yeah, no, this stuff's been too expensive in the past. Like everyone who rides bikes knows about carbon fiber bikes. They're super expensive,
That's right. But
now all of a sudden they wouldn't be. And car bodies and airplanes and boats, anything that's exposed to water would especially, they're talking about building all these barriers, rising seas because of climate change. They're going to have to build all kinds of barriers to keep places dry. And that building that collapsed in Florida a couple months ago. Yeah, that was because the rebar rotted out. With carbon fiber rebar, you wouldn't have to worry about that anymore.
Wow, and also I'm just thinking the containers. The
containers, big time shipping containers. Much lighter shipping containers.
Yeah, we cut it down by, I'm guessing, 20% of the weight, or something. It would cut down 80%.
More than that. More than that. Yeah. Steel is pretty heavy right now.
So there is a psychological problem here, which is, can the public accept an actual fantastic solution? And, and hey, Sorry.
Well, there's an old saying, if
you
it's,
can't cringe. You have to find something else to worry about.
yeah, I mean, there's an old saying, if it sounds too good to be true, it usually is not true.
Right.
But that's the operational word there is usually.
Uh-huh.
Sometimes a win-win situation occurs. There's no law of nature that says we can't have, a clean industry and prosperity. There's no law of nature that says we can't have that. A lot of people, a lot of environmentalists think that it's just not possible. They see this Metrol movement. This just sounds too good to be true. And I said, I've been looking for a catch. I can't find one.
That's right. I mean, what's wrong with a fork? Somebody invented the fork.
Yeah,
doesn't work. You don't have to put your hands. You got to use the fork.
I think about LED lighting. I mean,
there you go. That slides right in. That went right in.
There's no downside.
That's right. That's right.
Anyway, it's rare though. I mean, win-win situations are rare, but they do exist. And
let's go back to the video. Okay, so it's a win-win. Right. I'm sorry. So far, it's a win-win-win. It's like benefits you didn't even intend to get.
You clean the planet and make money.
Well, the money, yeah, that's okay. Great. Let's get back to that and see if we can continue with it. There we go. I got to go here to do that. Let's see.
It can use existing pipelines, rail cars, tanker trucks, and gas stations, thus saving huge amounts of money. Once the liquid Metrol is inside a converted car, truck, or literally any other type of motor vehicle with an internal combustion engine, it's stored in a standard fuel tank. Next, and using patented McAllister technology, the Metrol is heated and pressurized using recycled waste heat from the combustion chamber. The hydrogen is then separated out from the Metrol and cleanly burned. The leftover carbon dioxide and nitrogen are released back to the atmosphere from which they were earlier drawn during the making of the Metrol. Converting a normal car engine to Metrol use typically takes about the same amount of time as a standard tune-up. The existing exhaust system is replaced by the Metrol heat exchanger. The hydrogen accumulator is mounted nearby on the firewall, and the new smart plugs simply replace the old spark plugs. In many ways, Metrol cars and trucks are the greenest of all road vehicles. To understand why, we start with the most immediate, easy-to-see factors. First up, Metrol vehicles are obviously cleaner than those running on either gasoline or diesel, and this is by a huge margin. Besides no toxic tailpipe emissions, they actually clean the air they drive through. Metrol fuels are also easier on the engine than is gasoline or diesel fuel, so the vehicle engines last longer. Metrol cars are cleaner than other biofuel cars because they burn only hydrogen, not the carbon that's in methane or biodiesel. Metrol cars are cleaner than typical electric cars because they don't depend on the grid, which is still, unfortunately, mostly fossil fuel powered. Metrol cars have multi-fuel flexibility. They can run on either Metrol or, if necessary, gasoline or diesel with the flip of a switch. Metrol cars have lower costs overall compared to other green car types and compared sometimes even to gasoline cars. This is for two important reasons. First, converting existing cars to Metrol is much cheaper than buying a new car. Second, implementing the Metrol infrastructure is much cheaper than all the other energy alternatives. There are bigger issues that make Metrol even more attractive. For example, Metrol burning engines actually suck in and remove contaminants from the intake air. This means a Metrol vehicle actually cleans the air.
Okay, Dave, I wanted to stop here and go back for a second on something.
Okay.
I think it's a pretty good thing to just check on this. The infrastructure, okay? So let's say I say, okay, Dave, I'm done. Whatever it costs, $3,000 or whatever, convert my car. Where am I going to get Metrol? How would it be delivered? Going to be sold in the 7-Elevens, or do I have to go to a gas station?
No, gas stations would just start carrying it. They'd have a separate pump that says the Metrol pump, and it'd be cheaper than the gasoline.
So you would piggyback on the existing gasoline and diesel distribution system.
Yeah, you can use the same pipelines, the same tanker trucks, same gas pumps, same fuel tanks.
Oh, but they would be, it would be, let's say you're using a truck, it's only going to carry Metrol. It's not going to
Yeah.
carry. Okay, now when you talk about the pipelines, so you'd say, okay, on Saturday from this time to that time, we're going to put Metro in the pipeline. You'd have to clear
Actually,
it
they
out.
could do that. Actually, they could. The reason I said that is because hydrogen, as great as hydrogen is, hydrogen in gaseous form is kind of a hassle to deal with. You got to have expensive plumbing. It's very, hydrogen as a gas tends to leak more readily than like natural gas, and so you have to just spend extra money to make sure that everything is super sealed. And Metrol just bypasses all that. We don't need to change our infrastructure, And when I say infrastructure, I also mean right now coal-fired power plants. There's over 8,000 of them in the world, and a lot of countries are just most of them are in China, by the way. A lot of countries like Australia, they want to burn coal and very, very quickly. You don't have to build a whole new power plant. We could use existing infrastructure. We don't have to rebuild it all. We can just modify existing infrastructure.
Okay, so I mean, I know you're in the communications, right, and video and so forth.
Yeah.
So this is a technical question. So if I took a glass of Metrol and a glass of gasoline and a glass of kerosene or diesel fuel, it's a liquid. Metrol is a liquid.
Yes, at
What's
room
the
temperature
risks?
and pressure.
Okay? So I could pour it in a glass. I don't have to keep it under pressure, right?
Well, you don't have to have it real cold like liquid hydrogen. Cryogenic hydrogen. It has to be super cold. That's what spaceships use. That's what rockets that blast off from Cape Kennedy use liquid hydrogen, but it's super cold. That's a big that's expensive. We don't have to do that.
Well, there's a lot of good people earning a living off of that. You got to realize, there's an industry where people are making money with liquid hydrogen. So we'd have to find them other jobs.
Oh, for the space industry, liquid hydrogen's great. No problem.
Okay. So I got a glass of Metrol.
Yeah.
What's the risk compared to a glass of gasoline or a glass of diesel fuel?
Actually, it's less risk. It's less risk.
Drop a match into it, it won't ignite.
Yeah. Metrol is, it's a fuel, so it's gonna ignite. But I remember seeing up in San Francisco, up in Oakland, they had a big freeway, a tanker truck carrying gasoline crashed and spilled all the gasoline all over the place. A big fire erupted, and it actually destroyed the freeway. I don't know exactly why, but it was just the tremendous heat destroyed the freeway. And if that had been hydrogen or Metrol, hydrogen tends to just go up. It doesn't stay in one place. So it's actually cheap. It's actually safer than gasoline or diesel or jet fuel. But it still has risks. I'm not saying it doesn't have risks, but it's less risky than diesel or jet fuel or gasoline.
Okay, so that's what I'm trying to sneak out here. Is there will it evaporate and fill a room with hydrogen, and then if I walk in and light a cigarette, boom? That's what I'm saying. There's some hydrogen ales.
Hydrogen is the lightest of all elements, and so if you release hydrogen, it just goes straight up. It doesn't sit there on the ground.
But if I'm in a room or a factory or something,
if you're in an enclosed room, it could be a problem. That's when there are hydrogen accidents that occur when you're in a room, without ventilation.
Okay, so the scenario I put forward is reasonable. If I poured Metrol on a cooking plate or all over the floor in a warehouse or in the garage, the room could fill with hydrogen and ignite.
Well, you want to just open the windows.
Oh, I understand, but I'm just saying there is at least that precaution.
Sure.
It's also true with natural gas that we use. You're always hearing about these gas explosions.
Yeah, that's right. Natural gas could be a problem too, and people are talking about ammonia as a alternative fuel. That's toxic. That's toxic
That's
fumes.
right.
You
That's
know?
right. That's right.
So
I remember. Did you ever see the Bourne Supremacy, that movie? You must have seen some of them. Jason Bourne, no? But there's a
Yeah,
scene.
yeah.
There's a scene where he knows the enemy, whoever. It's usually he's fighting the police or the FBI or somebody.
Yeah.
It's in Germany. He knows they're coming to get him.
Yeah.
He just had to kill some guy who was an assassin, but he
Right.
knows the police are coming.
Yeah.
So he breaks the gas pipe, so the gas starts filling up the apartment.
Right.
And then he puts a newspaper in a toaster, pushes it down, and then he leaves. So that by the time they come in, the gas will have filled up the room. The toaster will have ignited the newspaper, and boom.
Yeah.
So this is something we have learned to live with or consider at least once or twice a year. Somebody says, the oven's on. I can smell it. I can smell it.
That's
the oven's on, right?
Yeah, so, right near San Francisco, there was an explosion that wiped out like a whole block of houses from natural gas, you know?
That's right. Nobody said get rid of it. Well, that's an interesting thing, because to me, there was another thing with electromagnetic waves, right? That, people are doing research and saying, oh, electromagnetic waves alter the electromagnetic field around your body and they cause tumors or this or that or whatever. However, in our urban environment, we're surrounded by electromagnetic waves all over the place, not just cell phone towers, but the wires in the wall. Anytime electricity passes one direction, it creates a field around it. So, you say, oh, electromagnetic fields, your teeth are going to fall out. Okay, let's evacuate the house and live in the middle of a field where there are no power lines or anything. No, we're not going to do that. You tolerate a certain risk.
There's an old saying: if we were that vulnerable, we would have all been dead a long time ago. I mean, there's all like radiation is bad, but there's natural radiation too. There's a community near Sacramento, and just because of the geology of the area, there's actually radiation, and some people won't move there because of that. But
that's right.
There's a certain amount of that. There's hazardous materials all over the place.
So the right
to some
thing,
extent.
the proper thing is to say, look, Metro risk, of course. If I give you a hammer or a thumbtack, you might leave it on this couch, sit down on it. You might step on it. Okay, great. So there's always some kind of risk. You don't want to drink the Metrol, So you got to keep it away from children and so forth. But compare it to comparable existing utilities that it's replacing. So it's replacing gasoline, natural gas, maybe in certain implementations, and diesel fuel and coal and so forth and so on.
And jet fuel.
And jet fuel. Right. And also it leads to, I would imagine down the road, if there's this kind of a miracle fuel, it would lead to distribution instead of aggregation. Instead of having a power plant generate energy and send it to you over electric wires, you could possibly put a device like this in your garage or something. It's sort of like the benefit of solar cells.
And
off the grid.
That's right. And this device, the hydrocarbon splitter, the first iteration of it will be a large industrial device, the kind of thing you'd see at a oil refinery or something. But there's no reason why it couldn't be a home unit that sits in your garage, and you put your food waste in there and you get hydrogen out the other side. There's no reason why that couldn't be done.
And especially in agricultural areas like farms.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Methane, you got the methane generated by the animal waste.
Yep.
And mulching and so forth.
Yeah, the Central Valley of California is one of the first places where we want to set up an operation because of all the ag waste out there.
So, okay, great. So I just wanted to cover that. I don't remember why we went off on that, but I just wanted to make sure it was understood. We're not looking over it so somebody comes up and says, oh, hydrogen blows up. Didn't you ever see the Hindenburg?
The Hindenburg. There's a book out. I got it right here. Funny that you asked. This is called the Hindenburg.
Right.
This is by a NASA scientist. It wasn't the hydrogen. It was the paint on the outside. They make the paint of the Hindenburg out of the same thing they make rocket fuel out of. That's the reason why it blew up. So this guy's a NASA scientist, and he spends a whole book explaining that.
Yeah.
So anyway.
Good luck.
Yeah.
He's fighting, the man who's the news announcer who will live throughout history is the humanity.
And then Hollywood, Hollywood does the same.
Oh yeah,
Hollywood has done a great disservice to the world. First of all, they love dystopian future movies where the horrible things are happening in the future, and it's just a really bad effect on society as a whole, in my opinion. A guy wrote a book back in 1973. A guy wrote a book called "The Image of the Future." He was a sociologist, and he talked about how it seems to be the case that from history, our images of the future become a self-fulfilling prophecy. And if that's true, and this guy's pretty credible, we should be making movies about good things happening. Star Trek's actually a good example. Star Trek is good. It shows a successful future, and we solved all the problems, and so that's a healthy thing. The other thing is, now I just lost my thought. James Bond movie where they see a big giant tank in the distance and it says hydrogen on it. He shoots one shot at this hydrogen tank, and it's like a nuclear bomb just went off. It's just, that's completely phony. Hollywood has just done a thing with true. So I wish I wish Hollywood would kind of, change their attitude about, they need to make eco hero movies,
Okay,
they
so
should have, they could.
this is, yeah, I know, I agree with you that you can, obviously media affects people. Otherwise, there would be no advertising. It
That's
does
right.
affect human thought and action
Yeah.
and desires, and goal
Yeah.
setting. And I personally think, my generation, we started growing up with TV and movies opposed to classical books. So
That's
people
right.
had role models like Tom Sawyer or Horatio Alger or somebody,
Yeah.
Captain or, but we had like all of the cowboy heroes, Paladin and, the rifleman and so forth, and
Yeah.
Gregory Peck and Clint Eastwood. And that's a man, and that's a career, and that's honesty, and that's integrity. You stand
Yeah.
up,
And
you
then,
draw a line, and so forth. So the media and art in general, this goes back to the Greeks with the plays and everything.
that's
They're
right.
morality plays. So
That's
it
right.
does affect people. So if you're
Yeah.
going to go on and say, well, it's going to suck. It's going to suck from here on out, and we're
Yeah.
going down faster and faster.
The
So
Terminator and,
yeah,
all these, oh man.
just go out. Let's have a party. We only got a few days left. So
Yeah.
you're right. I totally agree with you on that point. And
Yeah.
but that doesn't mean I'm going to swear off watching dystopian movies, because HBO is starting to stream
Well,
Dune,
the reason
which
why
looks good.
the reason why they like those movies is because, any student of drama will tell you to have a good story, to have drama, there has to
Yeah,
be a problem. There has to be a villain. And
that's
okay,
right.
great, no problem. We could have, Brad Pitt could be an eco hero, solving the climate change. What's wrong with, we got plenty of problems, no problem there. We
Right.
just need to start doing, there's been a few movies like, Jane Fonda was in one, and, of, ecological hero movies. I think uh, Captain Kirk, I think he's a hero. I mean, he's actually doing good things in his real life, by the way.
Oh yeah. That's right. That too. Okay, let's go back to the flick. Whatever the point was, we took a break on. I think we should watch more of it. Okay.
All
But
right.
again, you voice over anytime you want to pause and make a comment. Just speak up.
Okay.
And let's go here and start.
Contaminants from the intake air. This means a Metrol vehicle actually cleans the air that it drives through. With Metrol use being implemented in cars, trucks, trains, and power plants, we could virtually eliminate smog from the cities of the world. Even more important, Metrol production from biomass could enable the world's green plants to remove excess CO2 from the atmosphere. This is because biomass is made from photosynthesis, and photosynthesis naturally captures carbon from the air and puts it into plants. When animals or plants die, that biomass normally either rots or burns, thus returning the captured carbon back to the atmosphere. But because the Metrol system interrupts the rotting or burning of biomass, it prevents some captured carbon from returning to the atmosphere. This carbon is instead separated out from the biomass, stockpiled, and sold to manufacturing industries to make durable goods. This essentially locks the carbon in a place where it does no harm. The net effect of this process could be huge, enough for existing green plants to significantly lower and restabilize atmospheric CO2 levels. It's been calculated that we could potentially lower worldwide CO2 parts per million counts to safe levels within 20 years. One final Metrol benefit is to dispose of our waste products in a non-polluting way. Our garbage, sewage, and farm waste, etc., thereby become valuable resources instead of pollution headaches. The key to the affordability of Metrol comes from the captured carbon sold by the pound to industry as a manufacturing resource. The income potential of this is shown here, where we can see that a given amount of natural gas or methane yields 20 times as much gross revenue when made into Metrol than when simply sold or burned as we do now. This income from carbon sales can be used to subsidize both the cost of engine conversions and the per gallon cost of Metrol at the pump. The captured carbon sold to industry makes possible widespread use of a growing new class of wonder materials, such as carbon fiber, graphene, and carbon nanotubes. The superior quality goods produced include car bodies, bicycles, airplanes, and space vehicles, and to a new generation of much more efficient wind turbines and solar panels. This last point greatly amplifies the indirect capacity of Metrol to supply clean energy for the world. Right now, there are working prototypes for both the Metrol production equipment and the engine conversion kit that need to be advanced into production prototypes. With seed money, the next key step will be intensive third-party testing and certification to validate the reliability of the Metrol technology. This will be followed by ramp-up of production capacity to first-stage commercialization, which will take place in a few pilot programs around the country. Finally, with press coverage, word of mouth, and public demand, full-scale implementation of Metrol can begin, and the environmental plus economic benefits to motorists, travelers, and the energy-using public in general, along with virtually all other life on Earth, would be almost immediate. It all depends on the public and political will to step up to the plate and actually solve the key problems of our time.
Okay, Dave, I've got two lingering questions.
All right.
One is the one that's very prominent in the electrical vehicles scenarios, industry, community, folks, whatever you want to call it, which is what is the, I fill up a tank, how far can I go?
At least as far as gasoline, it's just as energy dense as gasoline is.
Okay, so we don't have the 300-mile limit like we do on EVs.
Range anxiety is not a problem with Metrol.
Okay, next question is, it sounds fantastic. It's almost like watching The Wizard of Oz and everybody came to Oz.
Everyone said, what's the catch? I go, I'm looking for it. I haven't found it.
You got horses of a different color. You got everything, all kinds of
The
miracles.
funny thing is you meet Roy McAllister and he's like a guy in a country grocery store. He doesn't look like this high powered, and yet his brain is just incredible.
Okay.
He's very humble and down to earth. And it's really
so who's handling all of the heavy lifting? Is he married? Is his wife behind him? Or?
He's got a wife. He's got a nice family. Yeah. And he's a really nice guy. He came out and visited me, and I asked my girlfriend, okay, use your woman's intuition. Is this guy full of it or not? Because if he's either going to go down as the biggest BS, artist in history, or he's going to go down in history as one of the most important inventors of all time.
Okay, so here's the other question rather. In the big picture, if everything gets converted, if this becomes so popular, and the financial aspect is important because that's what drives people, like without even checking it, people say, well, it's electric, it's an EV. I charge it myself. It costs pennies. I'm not going to have to pay for gas. In fact, most electric vehicles cost more to operate than gas vehicles, even today, because when you charge it in the field, you go to a charging station, you have to pay, and it's going up. So any kind of where they got a cheaper charging station because you bought a Tesla and he gives you I don't even know. I didn't buy one yet. And he
Mhm.
gives you 6 months of free charging or something. That's, that masks the actual reality of it. So there's at least a question which is actually more effective. There's other benefits to electric vehicles like lower maintenance, less parts, things like that.
Yeah, there's a
But
few.
but let me get to my question on that, which is if this, I'm saying that the cost of operation, the benefit to the individual drives the popularity to a great degree, much more significantly than the altruistic desire
Absolutely.
to prevent climate.
And that's one of the reasons why I'm as bullish as I am about McAllister Technology takes advantage of the profit motive. I call
Right.
it profit motivated environmentalism.
Good.
And it's I mean, if it wasn't for the carbon, Metrol would be, comparable in price to gasoline and diesel. The carbon is the key thing. The carbon, being able to make carbon fiber and graphene cheaply means you can sell it cheaply, which means it's the profit motive is just amazing,
Okay. So again, so let's say okay, all America, all vehicles, trains, not planes. Why not planes? Trains, planes. Everybody is using Metrol. Okay.
Yeah,
Is it
do
going
it.
to run out of resources? Is it scaled?
Yeah,
Can you
yeah.
keep doing it? In other words, it took 50 or 60
No.
years to develop the delivery of fossil fuels. You got to drill it, you got to refine it, you got to transport it through on
Yeah.
tankers or pipes. There's a whole story behind the fossil fuel industry, and they also have associated beneficial things like plastic, medicines, and so forth that come from fossil fuels. But
Yeah.
I'm just saying, if this Metrol, which is based on methane, maybe it can start from some other original element, is it going to run out of fuel in 100 years?
It's not, because I just pulled down another book off. This is by Jeremy Rifkin, The Green New Deal. And the subtext right here is why the fossil fuel industry will collapse by 2028. And he's saying because of market forces, the fossil fuel industry is doomed. With Metrol, it's not doomed. You can make Metrol out of natural gas. Natural gas is almost the same thing as methane. So you could take the fossil fuel industry and decarbonize one of their main products, and all of a sudden they're making Metrol. So that's one of the key things is the profit motive can work for us. It doesn't always have to be evil. And so you can make Metrol from any way you can get hydrogen. You can make it from solar energy by using the solar energy to make electricity. And then with the electricity, you split water into hydrogen and oxygen. And then you've got the hydrogen to make your Metrol from. The only thing you need to make Metrol is hydrogen. Everything else, it mentions in the film that to make Metrol, you combine it with hydrogen, with nitrogen and carbon dioxide drawn down from the atmosphere. So you've got a 3-element liquid fuel. And then inside the engine of the car, it separates out the hydrogen again, and it releases the carbon dioxide and the nitrogen back into the air. But that's where it came from in the first place. So it's a net zero total effect. It took carbon dioxide out of the air, and then it released the same carbon dioxide back into the air. So the net effect is net zero carbon emissions, and you're just burning the hydrogen. And you can get hydrogen from hydrogen is the most abundant element in the universe. I think it's more than at least 80%. It might be more than 90% of the universe is hydrogen. So we're never going to run out of hydrogen. That's the good news about hydrogen. And Metrol is hydrogen without the hassles. Oop, I can't hear you. You're muted.
Thanks. Yeah, I always forget.
Yeah,
that.
You're muted.
Let me be the devil's advocate here on the
Okay.
just to check two things. On the vehicle, there was claims made that just driving cars with Metro is going to clean the atmosphere.
Yeah.
And then you just said it's going to pull in the CO2 and release the CO2 in equivalent amounts. So
okay, those are two different.
What's it cleaning? What is
yeah,
it
there's
rid
two
of?
different issues here. Two completely different issues. One of them is Metrol itself. You make it in the factory by pulling carbon dioxide out of the atmosphere. That's not inside the car. That's at the factory. And
okay.
then it gets to the car and it releases back into the atmosphere. Now, just inside the car, and Roy McAllister didn't discover this. There's been all kinds of people who've talked about how anytime you just burn hydrogen, if you do it the right way, it actually pulls in pollutants, nitrous oxides, soot. It pulls in stuff from the air and cleans it up and makes it non-toxic. That's like I said, it's not just Roy saying that. That's been documented for a long time with the hydrogen. So your car becomes an air cleaning device. Now, don't get me wrong. I got nothing against electric cars. Eventually, most cars will probably be electric, and they'll be run off of solar energy, or you could run them off fuel cells. The fuel cells make electricity from hydrogen, so you could still use Metrol, and run them. And I don't want to get too far into that.
That's right. That's technical.
The point is, electric cars are great. One great thing about electric cars is fewer moving parts, much fewer moving parts. And so, fuel cell or electric cars. We won't have internal combustion engines, but and we won't. And the benefit that internal combustions have running on Metrol is that they clean the air they drive through. But if the air is clean to begin with, we won't need that anymore. So if we just had all electric cars and all fuel cell cars, that'd be fine. That's no problem. But internal combustion engines are not the problem. It's burning carbon that's the problem. If we were burning, internal combustion engines without carbon, without burning the carbon, they're just as clean or cleaner than anything else. And a lot of environmental activists just don't get that. They think that internal combustion engines are a villain, and they're not. So
so you're saying in other words, if we ran out of methane as a source, you could split water into hydrogen and oxygen using solar cells or some magic fuel that the aliens who landed.
Or you can just, if you want to just keep using natural gas, like the fossil fuel industry could just start splitting their natural gas into hydrogen.
One of the things, the natural gas complaints like fracking and stuff is that methane is leaking into the atmosphere, and it's like 10 times more greenhouse than CO2. So
that's why it's a temporary solution. It's not right.
But if I start with hydrogen into the Metrol cycle, I'm not going to be extracting carbon because I started with hydrogen. Just pure hydrogen.
Right.
If I started with water, I'm not going to have the carbon offset.
That's right. If you use solar energy to make Metrol, you're not getting the carbon benefit.
You're not getting the carbon benefit.
Very true.
Okay. But it still provides a fuel which is more efficient than gasoline or petrol. And I don't know what the other has less waste products. No waste products.
And by the way, the reason why I don't know if you've seen the
Metrol from the start of Metrol has no waste coming out of the tailpipe.
It doesn't.
And gasoline and you got catalytic converters, et cetera, but you still get some. Some cars, some manufacturers have claimed the air coming out of the tailpipe is cleaner than the air going in because of the traps and catalytic converters and stuff. That's possible. But with Metrol, it's just by definition no waste products.
No, the only byproduct of hydrogen combustion is water. H2O, pure water. There's nothing else.
So that's the benefit. Now I cut you off. You have any? Is there any chance you can remember what you were going to say?
There's so
no,
many
I was
things.
Talking about what I was saying is if you start with hydrogen created by solar electricity breaking apart water, and you go with the hydrogen to make Metrol, you don't have any graphene, no carbon benefit.
Right.
Which is true, right?
But we'll always have sewage and municipal waste, and that's got methane in it. So we'll always have methane. Methane's not going anywhere. It's a natural part of the world, and it's been a villain up to now because it's a really potent greenhouse gas. But if we monetize it, all of a sudden people say, oh, there's all kinds of methane leaks from the natural gas pipelines. Well, if there was a lot of money to be made from those leaking methane, they'd fix the leaks.
Right.
The
Okay,
profit
so
motive can do that.
So this is my last little catch here, devil's advocate. When you have a garbage dump, a lot of it is indestructible plastic bottles,
Yeah,
containers,
Yeah.
and all kinds of stuff that they always, that it's in the ocean, it's in the dumps.
yeah. Plastic's a big problem.
That's not going to generate methane, is it?
Plastic can be made into. There's many ways to deal with plastic. One of them is a process called pyrolysis. And there's companies that take plastic and they make it into what's called syn fuel, which is basically a synthetic fuel, but it's still got some carbon in it. Not as much as gasoline, but it still has carbon in it. But you can take that syn fuel and further process it and completely clean it up. So garbage, plastic, old tires, old wood, anything that's it's all hydrocarbons. I mean, everything that's living has carbon in it. So there's different ways of extracting that carbon out. And by the way, oil companies have been splitting methane for 100 years. Most hydrogen in the world today, 90% of it is produced by the oil. What they do is they split methane, process called steam methane reformation, and it's not clean. It puts out lots of carbon dioxide into the atmosphere. And that's why books like Drawdown, Paul Hawken's book, that's it's kind of like, here are the 80 solutions for fixing the climate crisis. It doesn't take hydrogen seriously because it knows that most of the hydrogen being made today is made with a process that's not clean. This completely fixes that. We're not using steam methane reforming to make the hydrogen. So
okay, let me interrupt a second. What was the name of that book? The book
Drawdown, Paul Hawken.
Okay.
That came out in 2017, and then he just came out with a new book last month called Regeneration, and they're both excellent books. The only thing that I would say about those books, though, is they still seem to assume that we have like 30 years to fix the climate crisis, whereas the UN, the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, the IPCC, is saying, no, we don't have 50 years. It's more like 10 years. We've got till 2030. And there doesn't seem to be any other alternative to Metrol for getting ourselves to zero emissions by 2030. And so the time factor is really important.
Okay, so we're going to come to an end now. This has been very good. I don't want to go on for hours and hours. We're pretty good here. And I just want to make a disclaimer that I own very little stock in Metrol, a little bit less than zero. So,
Yeah.
So there's no, this isn't an endorsement or anything. It's a company and it's capitalistic and all of that stuff. But it's just good news.
There's good news.
I like Gapminder. I like Stephen Wright. I'm all for this. Take a look at the bright side. Stop moaning and groaning
That's
about
right.
every time you got a pebble in your shoe, or 400 people died, fill in the blank. Yeah, every day people died because nobody gets out of here alive.
Yeah,
death comes to all of us. So
I'm doing a TEDx talk. It's called How to Be an Optimist in Scary Times, and it's all about how the troubles that we see going on right now are pretty serious. There's no doubt about it. I'm not doubting that. But I see what we're going through now is the breakdown before the breakthrough. It's the catalyst. That's what's going to, the crisis is the opportunity. The crisis that we see right now, the climate deniers are growing fewer and fewer in number as time goes on. And eventually everyone's going to get it. Hey, we not only can fix this, but we can we're not only going to survive, we can make a world that's better than it's ever been. And that's something to get excited about. Bright future mindset is something that, as a media person, I want to promote bright future mindset among people. So.
Okay. Well, that's a good way to end it, Dave.
Yeah.
Thanks a lot. I've really enjoyed this conversation. I'm sure we'll get together again.
Okay.
And Metrol, you can find out anything you want or watch videos by going to, I assume, what's the website for Metrol?
they've got a website. They're kind of redoing it right now. I've got a website called climaction.org. It's CLIME, as in climb. It's short for climate. Action, ACTION. So Climb Action. Somebody said, is that like a porn movie or what? What is that? No. It's about climate. Climaction.org, and you can get you can get all the links you need if you want to check this out further there. There's also Metrol Hydrogen Ventures. That's the official website of McAllister Technology. MetrolHydrogenVentures.com. Just Google Metrol Hydrogen Ventures and you'll see it.
Okay, great. Okay, so signing off here.
Okay.
Thanks again. I'll be seeing you soon.
Okay. Thanks a
Adios.
lot, Ken.
Okay.